Well, actually,
Welcome, boater friends. So good to see all your faces. Oh, there's still more coming.
mhm.
Um, what we're up to today is injury prevention hacks for paddlers. And our guests are Lisa Marie of McCall Pilates. There she is. And Teresa Rogerson, living in Asheville, North Carolina. And both of them are longtime paddlers with also a lot of experience and history in body work and fitness. And they're going to teach us some tricks that will help us be able to keep paddling for a long time. And with that said, if you have questions, we ask that you not ask your questions during the presentation. If you would like to type them into the chat window, I may be able to fit those questions in during the presentation. Otherwise, we'll address them at the end. And this entire presentation is brought to you by the Lower Columbia Canoe Club. And thanks for joining. And I'm leaving it to you, Lisa Marie and Tree.
All right, thanks so much. Just one little edit. I wouldn't want you not to ask questions. You know, feel free to raise your hand or say, can I ask a question if it's appropriate timing? So I'm going to say that, okay? People can ask, but if it's something, you just use your judgment, okay? Well, I'm Teresa Rogerson. My paddling friends that started off calling me Tree long time ago, so it kind of stuck, and I've paddled kind of all things that can be paddled, and I like to compete and all that. I'm completely out of paddling shape. I'm in a different vein of my life right now, but I feel like that the things I do to help myself be a good paddler make me just a better person in my body. And I'm riddled with injury. I've had plenty of injuries. I'm very tall. I've done a lot of landscaping, digging holes. I've had major injuries. So I'm kind of a case study for injury, or at least for myself. And now I'm a massage therapist and a landscape designer on paper. And so I just like to share the things that I've learned. And I've learned a whole bunch of different things from different disciplines and different thinkers, and putting those together in something that we can use. Because there's a lot of stuff out there. If you want to work out, if you want to get a workout, that's easy to find. If you want to build your biceps up or whatever, that's easy to find. But there are a lot of subtle things that we can do that help keep our body in balance. Because if we build strength on a body that's out of whack, then we just reinforce the out of whack. And like I said, the reason I know this is because I feel it all the time in my own body. So I'm coming mainly from Pilates, which you've heard of, the work of Pete Egoscue, the Egoscue method, and Thomas Hanna somatics. And then there are other names that you may have heard, may not have heard. Moshe Feldenkrais is another one. And most of these people are really trying to get back to the basic of not core strength, like, man, I can crunch, I can do a lot of sit-ups, but just being in control of your core and breathing. And a lot of the people on the class today are of the generation where we grew up with like more pain, or, you know, no pain, no gain. But now it's a little bit about slowing down and tuning in, slowing down to get faster. And so I feel like that works well for aging, slow and not getting hurt, slowing down to maintain, to be a better paddler, to get faster. So what I'm going to have us start with is something, just laying down. I can't see. Can somebody see if everybody's kind of set up, or if anybody has any questions about what they need to do? Does everybody have a floor? So what I'm going to have us, well, no, first I want to introduce Lisa Marie, who is a Pilates instructor in McCall, a kayaker, as Teresa told you, and have her tell you a little bit about herself.
Thanks, Tree. First of all, I want to thank Tree and Teresa for letting me join this workshop. I'm super excited to meet you all. And I live here in McCall, Idaho. I moved here about 6 years ago and opened up a Pilates studio in town. The great thing is I get to work with a lot of paddlers in town, kayakers, rafters, canoers. And so I've actually learned a lot from my own clients and myself. Main reason I got into Pilates years ago when I lived in Colorado was to prevent injuries, but also to become pain-free. I was dealing with a lot of lower back issues. I have scoliosis, and I've been in a few, I don't want to say accidents, but falls, I should say, off my mountain bike. And that led to a lot of imbalances. And that's one reason I got into Pilates. So a lot of people ask me today, actually, I had a physical therapist say, okay, well, what is Pilates? And, you know, a few words, how would you describe Pilates? And the main thing is it's whole body balance. So it's all about balancing your body, right? So as a paddler, we start to overdevelop the upper back. And surprisingly, our lower back becomes weak. And then also we're kind of in this forward flexion a lot. It's not like we're going, especially if you're on whitewater, you're not opening up your chest and going, hey, here's the rapid, because you're just going to flip, right? And so I've learned through Pilates that it's really important to cross train to prevent injuries, and Tree will go more into depth today on that. So I'm excited to join you, and hopefully I can get you some more info, and feel free if you ever want to do Pilates and you're in McCall, give me a call. The other thing is Tree and I also teach wellness on the river and through Barker River trips. So if that's something that you want to do, you can contact us. And it's kind of neat to go on the river, do Pilates, wake up at 6 in the morning while the guides make breakfast, and you get to enjoy moving before you get on the water. So thank you.
Yeah, makes such a difference. Okay, so first we're just going to start off. This is called finding your plop, and we're going to lay down. That's what I call it. And we're just going to lay down on the ground, palms up with your knees in this TP position. And if you're like most people, your pelvis is laying on the ground, not perfectly balanced. There is tension in there. You know, you're holding something. So what I want you to do is do the signpost or the football, like the goalpost, like this with your arms, and then bring your arms down with your palms facing up. And really just kind of try to put the backs of your shoulders onto the ground. And then you're going to lift nothing in your body except you're going to curl your tailbone under just a little bit. Very slowly lift your tailbone up. And then before you go too high, just drop it onto the ground. And then do that again. And each time you drop, you want to drop naturally and find the way your body plops onto the ground. And then you can do it quickly and more times in a row to where you're just kind of bouncing off of the ground. And I have a very lewd joke that I call it, but you're pelvic thrusting the air above you. And feel yourself relax and feel tension in your lower back dissipate. You'll want to be aware if your shoulders are curling forwards, which they very well could be if you're a human or if you're a paddler, and roll those back, and then pelvic thrust the air a few more times and just bounce off of the ground. Does everybody feel more relaxed after doing that?
I do.
I certainly do.
Yep.
Lisa Marie will take us through some breathing and explanation.
Great, thanks, Tree. I definitely felt a lot of energy in that sacrum area from that exercise. That's great. So let's talk about breathing. And you can do this either on your back or you could do it seated if you want to watch. Just make sure you're in a comfortable position. So if you're on your back, make sure your feet are about hip width apart. And again, palms are up. And then place one hand right on your belly and the other hand on your sternum or your chest. And so I invite you to breathe through your nose. And as you breathe through your nose, feel your chest rise, feel your belly rise. And as you exhale, go out the mouth and feel your belly drop and your chest drop. So we call this belly breathing. We're going to inhale, expand your chest, expand your belly up towards the sky. And then as you exhale, feel your belly drop, feel your sternum sink. And what will happen, so continue breathing while I talk, but what will happen is you will almost feel more grounded with the floor. And you will almost feel like you're kind of sinking into sand, especially as that belly drops. Okay. Now we're going to go into what's called lateral posterior breath, also known as rib breathing. So you're going to take your hands on the rib cage. I like to use the back of my hands, and your elbows just drop into the ground. Now, as you inhale, take your breath towards your rib cage and your back. Feel it expand. As you exhale, pull those ribs away from your hands and feel your abdominals and core activate. Inhale, expand your rib cage. Remember, your rib cage is not just in the front, but also the back body. And then as you exhale out the mouth, feel your ribs draw inward. Now, the great thing is you can actually practice this on the river with your life jacket. So when you have your life jacket on, you can inhale, expand towards that life jacket. And then as you exhale, you're pulling your abdominals, your ribs, your back away from that life jacket. Okay. Now, the next one we're going to do is called one lung breathing. Now, we obviously don't have one lung. It's just what Joseph Pilates called this exercise. So I'm going to have you take your right hand and place it on your left rib cage. Okay, so left side of your rib cage. As you inhale, try to expand your rib cage towards your hand. And then as you exhale, pull that rib cage away from the palm of your hand. Inhale, expand towards your hand. Feel the ribs open like blinds. Exhale, pull those ribs away from your hand. Let's try the other side and see the difference. So take your left hand onto your right rib cage. Your right hand is just on the floor. Make sure when you're practicing this, your knees are bent. I forgot to mention that. That really keeps that pelvis in a settled position. So now left hand on right rib cage. We're going to inhale, expand towards your right rib cage. And then exhale, pull your rib cage away from the palm of your hand. Notice, is this easier or harder on this side? Inhale to expand towards the right side. And then exhale, pull that rib cage away. Now, take both hands. I like to do a crisscross action here. So right hand on left rib cage, left hand on right rib cage. And now laterally breathe evenly to the right and left at the same time. And as you exhale out the mouth, feel the rib cage sink, feel the core activate. Try that one more time. Inhale to expand. And then exhale again, pull the ribs away from your hands. So it's really important to practice these breathing techniques. And one thing I've learned, especially on the water, especially if you have any anxiety going down a big rapid, you can use the breathing as a way to calm the mind. And I love this quote that comes from Joseph Pilates. Above all, breathe correctly. So due to stress and anxiety, we create these patterns where we don't really take a long inhale and a long exhale. And then we just go into what's called chest breathing. And I want you to actually feel this. So feel free, you can either stay on your back or come up to a seated position, but just put one hand on your chest and take your breath just to your chest, but not the belly. And it's a really short breathing. So it's inhale, exhale. Do you feel anxiety? My heart starts to race. I'm like, okay, what's going on? And so you can notice how when you have a very short breathing, that can cause some stress. And that's the last thing that we want if we're on a river and we're going down a hard rapid, right? We don't want to create more stress. So yeah, back to Tree.
Nice. Not only do we not want to create more stress, but when our muscles tense up, there's less blood and oxygen flowing, and we lose. I mean, it's just a downhill from there, right? Okay. I don't know if everyone has a chair close to them, but this has absolutely saved my life, and it's so simple. So we did the find your plop. You can put your knees up on a chair. The key here is that you're not holding your legs so they don't flop off the chair or anything. You want your legs to be in a relaxed position, and generally 90 degrees here, 90 degrees here. And what's happening in this position is that your femur bone is setting back down into the pelvis. Your pelvis is finding what is alignment again, and then you just lie there with your pectoral muscles, your chest being open, with the palms of your hands facing the sky. And if anybody has anything lower back whatsoever, I can pretty much promise you that this will help. And you can stay here about as long as you want. People who have attention deficit disorder, if you really need to get on your phone, I've been known to lay here and catch up with friends, like, oh. But it's great because this is a way better position to be doing this texting than sitting in a chair and hunched over. I would say any questions, but that just seems so funny. Any questions so far? Okay, so what is it with kayaking and, wow, canoeists have my utmost respect because of the knees, but in kayaking, sooner or later you have to address hips, right? You may have heard of the figure 4 stretch. So we're still in this lying down with legs in tent position, and put one ankle up on the opposite knee. And you can, if I've been so injured that this has been enough for me, I'm pushing my knee away from my body with my pelvis being nice and glued to the ground. I'm not shifting in my pelvis at all, so that I stretch my hip flexor muscles. And then the next step would be to lift the leg that's on the ground and grab behind the knee against that, this fulcrum of your ankle on your knee. Then you can continue to push your knee away from your body. Take big, deep breaths. And then I switch. Another nice thing to do when you're in this position is to just grab behind your knees and pull your knees into your chest. As you pull your knees into your chest, pull the backs of your shoulder blades to the ground. Tuck your chin towards your chest to lengthen out the neck and to stretch between the shoulder blades. All the while keeping the back of the sacrum against the ground. You're not necessarily rolling up, but you're just getting a nice stretch in your lower back, in your hip flexors against your body. And then lower your legs. Oh, and then one of my favorites. Everybody might not, that Lisa Marie's going to teach, not everybody might not have a resistance band, but if you have a bath towel or even a shirt, just something, a belt. This is called one leg circles. And this is in the mat routine of the Pilates repertoire.
Awesome. Thanks, Tree. So yes, what she said, TheraBand. Also, like if you have like a bathrobe, the little tie thing that works really well. Oh, and also if you hear screaming in the back, that's my baby girl. She's 9 months. So I apologize. It's not me screaming. So we're gonna attach or hook your left foot with a TheraBand or rope or whatever you have. A cam strap actually would work really well too. And then the opposite leg is either bent or it could go long. If you have any back injuries, I would suggest keeping your opposite leg that's on the ground bent. You want to make sure your pelvis is in the center. So I like what Tree was showing us about that little plop, because that usually will put the pelvis in a nice balanced position. And so you're going to take this left leg, you're going to cross your midline. And as you do that, you're turning your toes inward. You're going to lower the leg down. Then you're going to rotate your foot outward and then bring that leg back to the top. So keeping that pelvis nice and steady, we're going to internally rotate, lower the leg down, exhale, go into that external rotation and bring that leg back to the top. Now, if your other leg is long, you're going to keep that leg long and active. It's almost like you're standing on that lower leg. Keeping that pelvis nice and steady. Again, you're going to cross the midline, lower. Now, as you exhale, pull your abdominals in to bring that leg back to the center. I want you to feel your femur just sinking deep into the hip socket as you make these circles. So I like this because it's some dynamic stretching. And honestly, most of the times we're kind of stuck in a static position, seated, whether we're driving to the river or the lake. And then also if you're kind of stuck in a boat, those femurs are just really stuck in that hip socket. And so by going into these circles, that really kind of lubes that hip socket up. But the other thing is you're focusing on stability of your lower back. And so you're using core muscles as you do that. Now let's stop at the top and reverse. We're going to exhale away, lower that leg down, cross the midline, bring it back up to the top. Go nice and slow and controlled here. And again, keep your elbows down. If you don't have a TheraBand and you're using a cam strap or a rope, then usually you have to kind of follow the foot because there's no give, which is perfectly fine. But everyone should have a TheraBand. It's like one of the cheapest pieces of equipment you can buy, and you can take it wherever you go. Sometimes I'll even, if I do like a self-support trip, I'll even throw a TheraBand in the back of my boat. Now, let's stop at the top, bend the knee, take your other foot, bring it up onto that TheraBand. We're just going to switch sides. Now, remember this opposite leg that's on the ground, the knee can either be bent or it can be long. Again, long, you want to stabilize. You're going to lengthen the leg that's in that TheraBand long, and then we're going to rotate the toes inward, cross the midline, lower, externally rotate, bring that leg back up to the top. And so as you make these circles, remember, rule of thumb is keeping that pelvis and lower back steady and stable so that we can get the movement to happen in the hip socket, not the lower back. And remember, you're focusing on long inhales towards your rib cage, long exhales out your mouth. We'll get 2 more going this direction. And then last one, let's go ahead and stop at the top and now reverse. So now we'll exhale away, inhale, rotate back to the center. Keeping your shoulder blades grounded as you make these circles. Now, if you're getting any clicking or popping with any of this movement, bend your knee a little bit. Sometimes that'll change that. Or try to imprint your lower back into the mat, and that usually will get rid of any popping. We'll get 1 more. And then stop at the top. Awesome. Bend the knee, unhook your foot. Bring those knees to your chest. Just give yourself a little hug. And then set those feet back down onto the ground. There you go.
Need to go get your daughter?
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
No, you need to go get her. You can go be home.
She's downstairs with my husband. I think she's having a good time, it sounds like.
Well, y'all, this is the perfect thing to do now after is the windshield wipers. You've probably seen it before where your bent legs, you just wipe them back and forth and erase, like erasing the Etch-a-Sketch. Remember the Etch-a-Sketch? Well, okay, one metaphor at a time. Let's just do windshield wipers, right? Wiping it clean and just going slowly back and forth so that you get a nice rotation in the lower back. Focus on keeping the shoulders stable so that they don't come with you. You'll notice one side is different than the other, but you know what? After doing that exercise we just did, my sides feel much more the same. So that's great. I think everything we've done so far, because if I plop down and do these after a normal day, I don't feel as good as I do now. Okay, the sleeper. And I really don't want to get ahead. I mean, I really want to hear if there are any questions. I have not been monitoring the chat because I'm so far away. So
I'll check, Tree. Looks like no questions in the chat.
Okay.
I have a question, actually. Lisa Marie suggested that I bend my leg because of my hip pops when I do the circles to the outside and down and up along midline. My hip always pops even when my leg is bent.
Okay.
I've done that since I was a little girl. It's
Yeah. So one suggestion is getting your pelvis in a different position, and that sometimes can change things. So I'll show you real quick. And it might work, it might not, but basically before, go ahead and put a foot around your TheraBand and then keep this opposite knee bent. And then what you're going to do here is you're just going to rock your pelvis back and forth into what I call a posterior and anterior tilt. So you're going to draw your pubic bone towards your belly button. I always remember this as a posterior tilt because you're pressing your lower back into the mat, like putting a postmark. Then you can do the complete opposite anterior tilt, but those hip bones rise. Now, just kind of go back and forth and then find something right in the center. Your abdominals are strong, and just start with some small circles here. And when you do that, when you do the small circles, Teresa, do you feel any popping yet?
No, it's only when I go to the edge of my range.
Okay, so now open up that range a little bit. And as you open it up, it's kind of like knocking on the door but not going in. Okay, and so my suggestion is actually keeping your range of motion small, because if it's a constant pop, 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 there's some misalignment going on, and you're kind of losing the purpose of getting that nice and lubed up in the hip socket. And Tree, you might have another suggestion on that. It kind of sounds to me like hip flexor. Something's going on with the hip flexor in that. And if it's something that you've been dealing with your whole life, modify. And it's really important to have that modification. The other option too is actually keep your knee bent in a tabletop position. And so tabletop is basically knee at a 90-degree angle. Okay, and you could take that TheraBand around the back of the leg, and you might be able to open your range of motion bigger here. And so try that, Teresa.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then the other thing is to play with your pelvis. Maybe you need less of a posterior tilt, and you need to go back more into a neutral position.
Okay, Patty, why are you sharing your screen? Oh my.
Uh-oh. She might not know. Sometimes that happens.
I know, just hit the wrong button. Patty, can you hear us?
Is Patty a co-presenter? You might be able to revoke her presenter status.
Yeah, I don't actually know who she is. She's not supposed to be presenting, so it's definitely a mistake. I'll be back.
Oh, there it is.
There, it's gone.
Yay, thank you.
All right. That was great. When you were on the ground, Lisa Marie, and you were talking about the pelvis, anterior, posterior,
Yes.
everybody's seen a skeleton. Pelvis is kind of like a bowl, right? So you kind of want to drip water out of the front of the bowl, out of the back of the bowl. And what you can do on the ground as well, if you're spending time down here, is you can lift one pelvis towards your shoulder, like right pelvis towards my right shoulder, and then lift and let my skeleton do whatever happens. If it makes my head want to fall over, that's okay. But the action is happening right here. It's almost like I'm marching on the ground, but I'm lying down. And that's a nice way to kind of help also free up the hips down there. Just throwing that one in.
Awesome.
Okay, now this one is called the sleeper that I learned about through a Jackson Kayak's article. And so I'm on the ground. I'm still in the frame, right? And I've just got my head on a pillow. And I'm lying down on the arm I want to stretch, or the arm that maybe even is injured. And all I'm doing, my arm's coming out from my body at 90 degrees, and I'm just gently pressing on the top of my hand or my wrist to push towards the floor. And you get a really interesting stretch in the back of these rotator cuff muscles. I'm sure everybody feels that, right? I certainly do. And it's one of those places, it's like, wow, how do I ever stretch? It's like I've never stretched that before. But shoulders, I mean, we're paddlers. We know that we need our shoulders. And modern life, as does paddling, puts us in this forward crunch position. Our pecs get strong. And so what happens if we're turning into people like this, and then we get knocked over in a rapid, right? Like, we need to have this nice and open so that we don't dislocate. I mean, we don't want to be out of position, but what we don't need to do is to have this kind of thing going on. And I mean, I certainly have it. So anything we can do to open up and keep our shoulders moving in their full range of motion will definitely prevent as many shoulder injuries. So did everybody understand the sleeper? I'm going to do it on the other side.
Yeah, that's internal rotation.
What's that?
Sleeper.
All right. And then my other favorite Pilates, the swimming. Okay, so I just went off about being overdeveloped in the front, well, or curling towards the front. And so we need to be like this more, right? In our lives as paddlers. So Dixie Marie is going to teach us the Pilates exercise called swimming.
Awesome. Thank you, Tree. Okay, so you might want to watch this first before you actually lay on your stomach. And I'm going to kind of show you going from like a level 1 to level 3. And so you're going to be lying on your stomach and place your hands underneath your forehead just for a little pillow. And I like to kind of rock the pelvis from side to side and then just stop in the center. In this position, you're going to draw your abdominals towards your spine and then just take your right leg and reach it away. Can you see my leg okay, Tree, here?
Yeah.
And then you're going to bring that leg back down. And now take the left leg and reach it away and lift it up. And as you do that, that pelvis stays nice and steady. And then you slowly bring it back down. So we're just starting with the legs, keeping the upper body supported by the mat. And then if you're feeling good about this, then take your arms and extend them out like you're making a Y shape. Okay.
You're going to set that forehead down onto the mat. And then first thing you're going to do is just lift the head away from the floor. So you're activating the back of your neck. Then bring one arm up and slowly bring that arm down. Then bring the other arm up and then back down. Try that a few more times on each side, really activating your upper back and your core muscles to be in this position. Now, go ahead and set that forehead back down. Okay, and now we're going to put this together. Okay, so you're going to take one arm, opposite leg, lifts up, head is hovering away from the floor, and then slowly bring the limbs and head back down. Exhale, one arm, opposite leg, head lifts up, and then inhale back down. Now, try to keep your head lifted, and if you want to go into some more extension, look towards the edge of your mat. Bring one arm up, opposite leg, and then interchange. So this is a little bit more advanced, and you want to make sure this feels really good on your lower back. You're activating those muscles, the neck, the back, the core, but you shouldn't feel any compression in the lower back. Okay, and then once you're done with that, go ahead and press up to all fours. Open the knees wide, and then just let your butt drop. And if your knees allow this, just go into a little child's pose. If your knees don't allow this, you can go into a cat stretch and just do the complete opposite of extension and go into flexion. And then bring it back to center. And let me know if you have any questions. Kind of quickly went through that. But I just wanted to show you how you can make this a little bit easier from the beginning. Is just start from the legs, the arms, and then one arm, one leg, lifting the chest and head away from the floor. And everybody's extension is going to be a little bit different. Even if you're just hovering the head away from the mat, that's going to be some good work for the upper back.
Great. All right. Then the final thing we're going to do on the floor, and then we're going to stand. And I mean, in full disclosure, I haven't done this in forever, and it's called thread the needle plank. So everybody's heard of planks, and planks are good for us, right? Very good for us. However, if you're just doing a plank like this, not to demean it, but not to say if you're just doing it, it's limited. If you, as a paddler, were to thread and come back out, then you're going to work the rotator cuff muscles through a bit of their range of motion. And you're working on balance. Awesome. Okay, well, we're going to move to standing. And while we do, just a couple things to share about preventing injury when you're on the river, Devin Barker of Barker River Trips that we mentioned, she turned me on to the idea. I mean, of course, whatever. She's the one who really first said it to me, is paddle backwards as an antidote to paddling forwards, because you're using all these different muscles. So if you're on a river and you get down to the bottom of the rapid and you've got like a long flat area, or even if it's not that long, you can turn around backwards, throw in 20 backward strokes. And like, so that's one just super simple thing that you can just do whenever you're paddling. Carry your boat on a different shoulder. That's what Anna Levesque says. Anna Levesque's a Canadian freestyle champion. And now she's the one who wrote Yoga for Pilates, and she's very active in the whitewater community. People love her. She said, carry your boat on a different shoulder. And if nothing else, boy, you'll really feel how your body is not the same on both shoulders if you do, or on both sides of your body, or how your musculature is not balanced. And then what I say is, to get my interval workouts in paddling, I zoom back and forth across the river. I catch every eddy. I surf every wave, no matter, like, make class 1, turn it into class 5 just by making critical moves on the tiniest little eddies, and just look like a spaz on the river. And in that way, I get so much benefit, whereas other people are kind of floating downstream, and that's fine too, but that I'm getting interval training. And scientists say that as we get older, the thing that keeps us young is the interval training. It's not necessarily that the people who are running marathons, and just having that consistent cardiovascular, but the people who are punching it with interval training is where you really are, for lack of a better word, kind of keeping youthfulness. And it makes sense because you're revving it up and revving up your heart rate and coming back down, and you're making quick moves. So that's what I say. Now, so everybody's standing. You don't have to stand right now, but this is one of the coolest things ever. Pete Egoscue, he calls this the golfer grip. So if you look at my hand, it's like high five, and I'm just curling to the tips of my fingers are touching the top of my palm, and my thumb is back and it's stretched out. Okay. Now everybody's done arm circles, right? Well, it's hard to get my whole span, but the hitchhiker thumb part, if I'm doing arm circle, I'm backwards, I'm pointing my thumb backwards, and I'm doing my arm circles. You can do small and then large while maintaining this golfer grip. Make sure, really curl those fingers back. And what I'm feeling is I'm feeling more activation and work in my bicep muscle and my rotator cuff muscles. And then you can go forward and you can thumbs down and go forward circles, small and large. And then you can shake that out. You can do the golfer grip again and put your knuckles right here. Well, basically box your ears in with the golfer grip, and then wag your elbows to touch, and then back open again. Now, when you do that, I want you to think that there's a little bit of that your knees are not locked. Your knees are slightly bent and your butt is kind of down so that you can move if you had to. And you don't want to sway back when you do this. You want to kind of tuck your butt muscles slightly, and then golfer grip, and then wag your elbows to the front and back. This is something you can do before you paddle. If you're cold, another thing, if you're cold, is You can just stand at the put in. You can just elevate your shoulders and drop them really fast. It's kind of like finding your plop with your shoulders. And that will really quickly heat up your chest. That's just a nice little trick. But a lot of these things, if we would do them before paddling, and I'm guilty as anyone else. Did everybody understand that golfer grip?
Kind of. There was a question about why is it so important?
Well, unfortunately, I can't speak to exactly the anatomy of that, but if I just do arm circles with my hands kind of in whatever, I don't feel the bicep and my rotator cuff muscles as activated as if I do that golfer grip.
I have burning in my forearms from doing it.
Yeah, and yeah, in my forearms too. Which, you know, all of this, anything we can do like this, martial artists will do this where you face palm one, you reach your other hand around the front of it and pull this thumb back slightly as you go down the midline of your body to get so it's kind of straight up and down, Teresa, so that you get a nice stretch on your wrist. So it's face palm, reach around to the thumb side, and then press down. So any kind of stuff like this that we can do at the put in after paddling. And then finally, have you heard of foundation training? Okay, so here's Golfer's Grip guy, Pete Egoscue. This book, boy, that's a bright, yeah.
There it is, A Revolutionary Method for Stopping Chronic Pain.
This book is great. I mean, I did every exercise in it every day when I was injured. And then all of a sudden I was like power walking on concrete where normally that hurts without wearing shoes. I was barefoot, you know, it was just wild. And then Thomas Hanna Somatics. And then Joseph Pilates, which is much more of a household name that we've all heard of. But the last big thing I'll talk to you about is the Founder. It's called the Founder. It's from Foundation Training. And Foundation Training, I like how they say it, so I'm going to just read it. Through a series of bodyweight exercise, Foundation Training activates your posterior muscle chain, anchors the hips, decompresses the spine, and teaches you to take the burden of supporting the body out of your joints and puts it where it belongs, in the muscles. Awesome, right? So this one is kind of tricky to do. It's not tricky, it's just confounding because it's like so simple, yet you're like, what? Okay, so I'm standing with my feet hip width apart. And the first thing I'm going to concentrate is I'm going to put my butt back so far that I almost fall back, okay? And I'm going to, my chin is tucked. I'm almost falling backwards. To counterbalance that, I lift my arms up, forward and up. My knees are unlocked. They're not very bent. They're just barely bent. And then my fingers go together around a tense sphere of energy. My chin is tucked. And the place I want to feel tension is in the back, strangely. It's not normally you say that you want to have tension there. But your back is the tension between the hips and the fingertips getting as far apart from each other as they can. Your fingertips keep pressing together Your chin is tucked. And squeeze your heels towards each other as your toes grip the ground. Now, it's a very strange feeling to do this, and it may feel hard and kind of like, what? But if you do it a few times, you'll start to feel more mobility in your hips. It'll start to feel less like you're putting yourself in a strange position. And I would like to find a way, well, I'll just say it's foundation training, and you can look up the founder, which is the very basic piece of it. But to review again, my feet are hip width apart. My knees are just barely bent. They're almost pretty much not bent. I'm almost falling backwards as I put my butt towards the back of the room. To counterbalance, I press my fingertips together, the sphere of energy, and lift, and as far apart as I can from my hips, and I tuck my chin. You don't want your shoulders to just go up into your ears there, so watch out for that. Let your shoulders be down, even though your arms are raised.
And this position is called the founder?
Yep.
Okay. And your weight is in your heels?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. But my toes are also gripping as my heels are pushing towards each other. So it's weight on the heels, but anchored by toes. Okay.
Okay.
If you do a video of yourself doing this, day 1 and day 3, it's really interesting because the first time someone had taught it to me, they're like, no, but butt back further, butt back further, butt back further. And it was basically, I saw a picture of myself and it was pretty much like I was standing up straight. And then after a few days, I was like, it's like my spine lengthened or something.
How long do you practice this for?
Oh, this is just hold this at the beginning just a little bit, just try
Like
to
10
hold it.
seconds?
Yeah, just hold it a minute or at the beginning. All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. What other questions or discussion? Discussion, please. Or feel free.
Will
Well,
this
it's more of
recording
a,
be available for others to watch later?
yeah, it'll be posted on the Canoe Club website on the calendar of events. There'll be a link.
I think I have a neighbor that could benefit from it real well.
Good.
Thank you.
Lisa Marie, do you have anything to add or say?
No, I think that was great. That foundation or founder exercise kind of reminded me of one that I really like. If we have time, I can share it real quick.
Sure.
You need a wall or a door. It's more because you're actually pressing against something. You're going to be a little bit more supported. So let me put her down real quick. So again, this is going to kind of look funny in camera, but you're going to basically put your hands on the wall, and you want to have your hands shoulder width apart. And you're basically going to get your feet hip width apart. And do you see how right now my head is higher than my hips? My hamstrings are really tight, so I'm going to bend my knees so I can drop my head in line with my spine. And I'm pushing into the wall. And as I push into the wall with the palms of my hands, I feel like my sit bones are widening and lengthening. And you're going to feel activation in your whole back here. And then you start to lengthen your legs. And as you lengthen your legs, imagine you've got a little teacup or a cup of your favorite drink right on this sacrum. Don't let it tip.
As you push into the wall, feel your feet grounded. And so we're creating this length from the crown of the head all the way to the tailbone. And you're pushing that wall as much as you can. Now, when you come out of this, you walk forward towards the wall to come up to that nice upright position. You don't want to just, leave the wall in that position. You actually want to walk forward. So, and you can see Tree right now, and she's showing a great position here. Tree, actually bring your hands a little bit lower on that wall and drop the head just a tad bit and drop your chest and just feel like you're sticking your butt out. There. And you might have to bend your knees a little bit, but there's this wideness position that you're going to feel. I know it kind of sounds weird to say wide sit bones, but you're creating length through the bottom of that pelvis, which can tighten up from sitting for a long period of time. And then Tree, if you want to show how to come out of it, just go ahead and walk forward and come up to a nice upright position.
Awesome. That's a good one. Thank you.
Yeah, I got that one from Madeline Black. She's a Pilates instructor in California. She called it squid. I call it flying squirrel. Matches a little bit better in the mountains.
Funny.
Well,
Any more for the shoulders?
Hi, I'm Erica. I'm a occupational therapist, new boater, and also recovering from a dislocated shoulder. So I just wanted to share just a couple of the little exercises that I've been doing for some rotator cuff strengthening that are pretty simple and kind of building on the wonderful things that y'all have shared, if that's okay.
Okay with me.
Yeah, so, dealing with PTs and also kind of my own experience, just a really good, simple, preventative exercise is the Ys and Ts. So getting down kind of in that cat-cow position. I guess I can move to my floor. Sorry, I've been cooking dinner, so I've been on listening. Getting down kind of in that cat-cow position. You want, again, your spine aligned, everything straight, head straight, eyes down. Just make sure your spine's aligned, essentially. And then lifting the arm, so my left arm is my injured arm, and doing Ys, and always leading with your thumb. So just making a Y with your body, and then also making Ts. Really engaging the core in that position. So if you get down in this position, you're going against gravity, which will just make it a little bit harder. I also do them in standing, just kind of warming up a little bit as well. And you can add a little bit of weight if you get to that point, but I'm still at the point, if I do 3 sets of 10, I'll be sore afterwards. Just really activating the rotator cuff muscles, and you're really targeting just your teres minor and all of the muscles of the shoulder. And then one other one that I've PT been directed towards from is getting down on your belly, head down, hands flat like you're making your perfect T, and just lifting. And you really want to squeeze your shoulder blades together. And you can hold it for 10 or 15 seconds and do a few repetitions of them. And that just really works on stabilizing the scapula in the back region. So to continuing with a little more shoulder stabilization. And I missed the beginning, so I'm so sorry if y'all already talked about those.
No, nobody talked about those yet. And it is good to strengthen the rhomboids, especially. So I
Yeah,
like that to add to the set.
yeah.
Rounds it out.
right.
All right. Any final thoughts from Tree or Lisa Marie?
Well, I mean, we could keep going, you know how that is, right? Because it's endless, but I will say that people kayaking and canoeing, the ankle is there's like 26 bones in our feet out of 206 in our body. Is that right? I think that's pretty much correct. But if we've been down this position a lot in the exercises we did, if you just lift up, grab behind, rotate your ankle in one direction like 20 or 30 times, and then rotate it in the other direction. If you do that religiously for days in a row, you'll feel different about the way your foot strikes the ground, and that'll make a difference the entire way up your body. And then rotation, but also flexion and extension. And then just switch and do that. And so I just love these things that are pretty easy to do when you're laying on the ground, you know. So that's kind of, those are my favorites. And thanks everybody for adding your pieces. And I'd love to hear more if you have anything or any kind of.
Question, improving torso rotation. We are going to have another talk about paddling fitness that is yoga oriented that will be next week. And reminders will go out. Anna Levesque and Savon Weiland are speaking for that one. So that'll just add to this list of exercises that I have going already.
I guess, you know, this is, you can build rotational strength by, I'm sitting on the ground with my legs out. The important thing here is that my shoulders don't come up to my ears. You really don't want to do that. You want to just have a lazy arm, just kind of like let it be a little bit bent. And I'm imagining that someone's pulling me up to the ceiling and then twist. My head stays straight forward. I am not turning my head additionally, but I'm just taking this position and I'm twisting. Now there's breathing involved here. So I'm inhale and then twist. And this pelvis stays like completely like on the ground, no movement there. And then once again, check in every time, make sure your shoulders didn't creep up, because what we tend to do is to rotate is to like turn our head and, you know, creep up like that. Shoulders down, shoulder blades down the back. And then as you advance, then you'll reach for the hand to the opposite leg.
Yeah, I recognize that one. We call it the saw, right? You
The
start
saw.
and then you saw with your pinky on your little toe.
Mm-hmm.
Inhale, exhale to twist, exhale some more to saw your little toe.
Yeah, and one thing to add too, when we think about rotation, is to make sure we're really trying to get that rotation from our upper spine. A lot of the times our pelvis will shift and our feet will move. So if you can think about anchoring your heels and your sit bones, so as you rotate, you're not twisting from the pelvis or the lower back. Most of us are tight in the upper back, and a lot of that is from overdeveloped muscles from paddling a lot. And all of a sudden we're like, why am I not rotating as well? And so if you can really think about like wringing out the spine as you twist from the chest up, I think that's helpful, and Chief is demonstrating that really well.
Yeah, that's a good one. Thanks. It's wringing out the spine. Yeah, but not the lumbar, not the lower body, not the lower back.
Correct. Yeah, because those lower vertebrae are really big, and they're not necessarily made to twist. It's the upper spine that has more rotation. And our cervical spine, I like what she was saying, is to kind of keep that head more in the center instead of looking behind towards that backhand, especially because as paddlers, we're looking mostly downriver, but then adding maybe some neck rotation if that's something that you need to work on. That's something that you can now look behind you if you're focusing on cervical rotation. That sounds like another workshop.
Like Tree said, we could keep going indefinitely, adding on more things to do. But that was a wonderful set of exercises for basic paddling maintenance.
Awesome.
Yeah, appreciate you coming and spending your time teaching us these. Stellar. I especially love the finding your plop, I have to say.
That's great. I mean, it's so basic, right? And it's something we can do anytime, and it just makes it, it's something, I feel like it even just lets endorphins off or something.
Is that from the somatic work?
It's a Pilates teacher who was one of the original gangsters that studied with Joseph's first set of people. She is the one who taught me that. And
nice. Oh yeah, you told me about her. Yeah, I haven't heard that term, so I'm gonna steal it and use it in my Pilates classes.
Yeah, I mean, it's hi. Yeah.
Hi, little one.
She was the one that was screaming in the background. So
how sweet. Any other questions or comments? I see thank yous.
Yeah.
As I'm a raft guide, and one of my good buddies suggests learning to guide on both sides. So on your right side, and then switch it up and guide on your left side and create balance that way. So you're not constantly on one side. I've been on the one side for decades and ended up with scoliosis. So that's one thing, is seeking balance however you can.
Yeah. A famous, oh shoot, where is it? A famous massage therapist, Eric Dalton. He said, in the presence of pelvic instability, the brain will attempt to stabilize the lumbosacral joint, the lumbar sacral joint, where they come together, by layering the area with protective spasm. I mean, it's just, I kind of believe that the whole term of getting old is really just that we've been in certain patterns that are kind of off, that we keep repeating, and we've been doing it long enough to where eventually it has consequences. And it's not so much about being old or whatever, but I mean, to a point.
And then arthritis. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and some of that can be staved off by having the balls and the sockets work together, and the labrum and the cartilage not getting pinched and pressed all the time in weird positions, right? So that you get circulation and movement in there.
So one more plug for a future program, if I may. I am going to do one on shoulders, specifically all about shoulders, starting with anatomy and understanding how the shoulder works, and going deep into shoulder health, fitness, and common paddling injuries. And that's going to happen next winter. It's going to be a while, but I'm working on it already. It's going to be great. I'll have some great guests too. So
Awesome.
yeah, we're definitely not done with shoulders. Because for paddlers, it's a lifelong thing, right? Hips, shoulders, back, core, all these things, you have to have them forever if you're going to keep boating.
yeah, and it's very, very complex. It's not like the knee or the hip socket.
Shoulders are so
Very
messy.
complex.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we can call it the end. If there's no more questions, thank you all for coming.
Thank you. This was
Thank
great.
you so
And
much.
thank you so much to my speakers, Tree and Lisa Marie. You're the best for spending your time with us. Thank you.
My pleasure.
You're welcome. That was awesome.
All right. Bye-bye.
Hi, thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.